He rolled into Manhattan's priciest restaurant in a wheelchair. His date walked out in disgust. Everyone thought his life ended the night of the accident, until one waitress looked past the chair and saw the man he used to be. Before we jump into this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and drop a like. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I want to see all of you joining this story. The crystal chandelier worth more than most people's houses caught the light as Damian Cole strode through the entrance of Quantum, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. 6'4", custom Tom Ford suit, a watch that cost $200,000 glinting on his wrist. Every head turned. They always did. At 32, Damian Cole wasn't just rich, he was obscenely wealthy. Forbes had called him the Golden King of Tech, CEO of Colstar Innovations, a company he'd built from his dorm room into a $15 billion empire. Penthouse overlooking Central Park. Private jet. A collection of sports cars that would make grown men weep. He had everything. Until the night a drunk driver ran a red light and took it all away. The Bugatti crumpled like paper. Damian woke up 3 days later to a doctor's grave face and words that shattered his world. The damage to your spine is permanent. You'll never walk again. Never walk. Never stand. Never stride into a boardroom and watch people straighten in their chairs. Never sweep a woman off her feet. Never be the man he was. The first month was hell. Damian stared at the ceiling of his penthouse bedroom, the same ceiling he'd woken up under for 5 years, but now it felt like a prison. His legs lay useless beneath expensive Egyptian cotton sheets. He'd try to move them every morning, commanding them with all his will, watching them remain still as stone. "Come on," he'd whisper in the dark. "Move. Just move." Nothing. He stopped looking at mirrors. The reflection showed a stranger, gaunt, hollow-eyed, broken. He'd been a man who conquered obstacles, who turned impossible into inevitable. Now he couldn't even stand to use the bathroom. The humiliation was a living thing, eating him from the inside. His phone buzzed constantly those first weeks. Friends, colleagues, well-wishers. He ignored them all. What was there to say? "Thanks for your concern, but I'm busy hating every second of my existence." The penthouse became a mausoleum. He'd wheel from bedroom to living room to kitchen, the same circuit day after day. His housekeeper, Maria, would find him at 3 a.m. staring out at the city lights, a bottle of whiskey in his lap. "Mr. Cole, you need to sleep." "Why? So I can wake up tomorrow, still in this chair?" He stopped going to the office, started every board meeting muted, camera off. His partners' voices droned about quarterly earnings and market projections, and all he could think was, none of this matters. None of it ever mattered. The worst part wasn't the physical limitation. It was watching people's faces change when they saw him. The shock, the pity, the careful, patronizing tone they'd adopt, like he'd lost his mind along with his mobility. "How are you doing, Damian?" they'd ask, voices dripping with sympathy. "Phenomenal," he'd reply acidly, living the dream. He contemplated ending it more than once. The pills would be easy. He had enough painkillers to do the job. But something, stubbornness, maybe, or cowardice, kept him going through the motions of living while feeling completely dead inside. The world moved on quickly. His fiancée, supermodel Vanessa Hart, left him within weeks. "I can't do this, Damian. I need someone who can keep up with my life." She'd said it, standing up, looking down at him in his wheelchair, her diamond ring already off her finger. "You mean, you need someone who can walk?" he'd said bitterly. She'd flushed. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Vanessa, but at least I'm honest about it." After she left, he threw the $200,000 engagement ring across the room, watching it skitter across Italian marble. It felt good for exactly 3 seconds. Then the emptiness crashed back in, worse than before. His business partners started taking meetings without him. "Just until you're back on your feet," they said, not catching the irony. The tabloids had a field day. Fallen king. From penthouse to wheelchair. The price of speed. Each headline was a knife to his pride. He'd been untouchable. Now he was a cautionary tale. His mother arranged a lunch date. "You need to get back out there, darling. Camilla Harrington is perfect. Cultured, beautiful, understands our world." What Margaret Cole meant was, she won't be scared away by the wheelchair. She was wrong. Damien sat in Le Bernardin, watching Camilla's smile falter when she saw him roll up to the table. She recovered quickly. These society women always did, but he'd seen it. That flicker of disappointment. The lunch was torture. Camilla talked about her recent trip to St. Bart's, her charity work, and her new Birkin bag. She didn't ask him a single question. When the entrees arrived, she took a long sip of her champagne and said, with practiced sympathy, "You're still so handsome, Damien. It's just, I'm not ready for that level of responsibility, you know? Taking care of someone." "I don't need a caretaker," he said coldly. "I need someone who sees me as a man, not a burden." Camilla's face flushed. "Of course. But you have to understand, I have a very active lifestyle. Hiking, dancing, and traveling. I need someone who can keep up." She stood, gathering her Chanel purse. "You deserve someone wonderful. Someone ready for this." She gestured vaguely at his wheelchair, unable to even name it. Then she walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor with devastating finality. Damien sat alone at the table set for two, staring at his untouched $50 steak, feeling the weight of every curious stare in the restaurant. His hand shook as he reached for his water glass. Humiliation burned through his chest like acid. "This is my life now," he thought. Being left at tables, being pitied, being less than human. "Excuse me, sir?" The voice was soft, warm. He looked up to find a waitress standing beside him, with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile that didn't carry an ounce of pity. Her name tag read, Lena. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly. "Do I look all right?" The words came out harsher than he intended. She didn't flinch. "No. You look like you just had the worst lunch of your life. Would you like me to pack this up? Or bring you something that might actually make you feel better? We have a chocolate soufflé that's basically therapy in dessert form." Despite everything, his lips twitched. "That's quite a sales pitch." "I'm very good at my job." She paused, then added, "Your lunch is on the house today. Not because you need charity, but because nobody should sit alone looking like their heart just got stomped on. You're very presumptuous. One of my many charms. So, soufflé? Why not? My dignity's already gone. Might as well add calories." She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and something in his chest loosened for the first time in months. When she brought the dessert, she set it down with a flyer beneath the plate. "We do live jazz here on Thursday nights. You should come. Good music, good wine, and I promise no one will judge you for anything." "You don't know me well enough to make promises." "True, but I'm an excellent judge of character. Thursday, 8 p.m. Consider it." She walked away before he could respond, leaving him staring at the card and wondering why a waitress's invitation felt more genuine than anything he'd experienced in 6 months. Damien told himself he went back for the jazz. He was lying. Le Bernardin transformed on Thursday nights. Lights dimmed, a quartet setting up near the bar, the usual uptight crowd replaced by people who actually looked like they were enjoying themselves. Lena spotted him near the entrance and her face lit up. "You came," she said, weaving through tables to reach him. "You seemed insistent about the jazz." "I mentioned it once." "You made it sound interesting." "That's because it is interesting. Come on, I saved you the best table." She led him to a corner spot with perfect acoustics and an unobstructed view of the band. "What are you drinking? And don't say water. This is jazz night. That's practically sacrilege." "McAllen, 25. Neat." She raised an eyebrow. "A man who knows what he wants. I respect that." As she walked away to get his drink, Damien found himself watching her move. The easy grace. The way she laughed with other customers. How she seemed to genuinely enjoy her job. She was nothing like the women in his usual circle. No designer clothes. No calculated charm. No agenda he could detect. She was real. When she brought his scotch, a pour that was definitely more generous than standard, she lingered. "So, billionaire tech CEO, what brings you to a place like this?" He nearly choked on his drink. "You know who I am? I Googled you after last week. Damien Cole, founder of Colestar Innovations, youngest CEO to take a company public, worth approximately $8.2 billion according to Forbes. Very impressive." She sat down across from him uninvited. "But that's not what I asked. I asked, what brings you here?" "My mother arranged that disaster of a lunch date. She thinks I need companionship." "And what do you think you need?" The question caught him off guard. When was the last time someone had asked him what he wanted? "I think I need people to stop treating me like I'm broken." "Are you broken?" "My spine is." "That's not what I asked." He studied her face, looking for pity or discomfort. Found neither. "Why do you care?" "Because you seem interesting. And because I'm tired of serving people who have everything but appreciate nothing. You've lost something huge, but you're still here, still fighting. That's worth knowing about." Before he could respond, another server called her name. She stood, touched his shoulder briefly. "Enjoy the music, I'll check on you later." She did. Throughout the night, she'd circle back between other tables, stealing moments to talk. She asked about his company, his childhood, and his mother. She told him about growing up in Queens, her photography dreams, and her mother's illness that had derailed everything. "MS," she explained. "Progressive. Someone had to work, and art doesn't pay the bills. So here I am, waitressing and doing event planning on the side." "Do you regret it?" She considered this. "Some days. But regret doesn't change anything. You just figure out how to keep going." When the night ended, Damien didn't want to leave. For the first time since the accident, he'd felt like himself. Not the wheelchair, not the disability, not the pity case. Just himself. "Come back next week," Lena said as he prepared to leave. "Is that an order?" "More like a strong suggestion. Thursday, same time. I promise the company will be worth it." He came back. And the week after that. And the one after that. Their friendship grew in the spaces between her shifts and his increasingly flexible schedule. He'd work from the restaurant's corner table, and she'd bring him coffee exactly how he liked it without asking. They'd debate everything. Politics, music, whether New York or Chicago had better pizza, a debate that got heated. She never treated his wheelchair like an obstacle, never grabbed it without asking, never spoke to him like he was fragile. She challenged him when he got too bitter, called him out when he was being an entitled ass, and made him laugh when he'd forgotten he could. And somewhere in those stolen conversations and shared moments, Damien fell. Hard. It terrified him, because Lena wasn't like Vanessa or Camilla. She wasn't impressed by his money or his name. She saw past all of it to something he'd thought died in that accident. His humanity. The night everything changed started like any other Thursday. Lena was finishing her shift, and Damien was nursing his second scotch, watching her work. She moved with such efficiency, such grace. When she laughed at something a customer said, his chest tightened with an emotion he hadn't felt in over a year. Want, need, hope. After closing, she sat with him as the busboys cleaned up around them. "Long day?" he asked, 3 shifts. My feet are screaming. She slipped off her shoes, sighing in relief. But rent doesn't pay itself. How much do you need? She looked at him sharply. Don't. Don't what? Don't try to fix my problems with your money, Damien. I'm not a charity case. That's not what I meant. Yes, it was. And I appreciate the thought, but I need to handle my own life. If I let you start paying for things, where does it end? My rent? My mom's medical bills? My dreams? At what point do I stop being your friend and start being your obligation? You could never be an obligation to me. Why? Because you're some billionaire who can afford to throw money at problems? Her voice was gentle but firm. I like you, Damien. I like spending time with you. But not if you're going to treat me like some pretty project to fix. That's not what you are to me. He leaned forward, frustrated. You're the only person who makes me feel like I'm still myself, like I'm not defined by this chair or what I've lost. You're the only real thing in my life right now. Lena's expression softened. Then let me stay real. Let me struggle and work and figure things out on my own terms. You can be my friend without being my savior. What if I want to be more than your friend? The words hung in the air between them. Lena's eyes widened. Damien, I think about you constantly. What you're doing. If you're okay. If you're thinking about me too. I come here because you're here. I've rearranged my schedule around your shifts. I'm falling for you, Lena. And I know I shouldn't, because I have nothing to offer you except complications and a life that will never be normal. She kissed him. Soft, sweet, tasting like hope, and coffee and something he couldn't name. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. You really are an idiot sometimes, she said tenderly. You think you have nothing to offer? You're brilliant, funny, stubborn, and you see me. Not a waitress, not someone struggling. You see me. That's everything. I use a wheelchair. I noticed. Don't care. I can't dance with you, sweep you off your feet, do all the romantic things. Damien Cole, I don't need you to sweep me off my feet. I need you to be honest with me, to challenge me, to make me laugh. And maybe to kiss me again, because that was really nice. He pulled her close, kissing her properly this time, his hand tangling in her hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. I love you. I love you too. Even though you have terrible taste in scotch. Macallan 25 is excellent. It's pretentious. You're dating a billionaire. Everything's pretentious. Dating, huh? Is that what we're doing? As of about 30 seconds ago, yes. She laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. Dating Lena was unlike anything Damien had experienced. With Vanessa, everything had been performative, the perfect Instagram couple, the enviable lifestyle, the aspirational romance. With Lena, there was no performance, just honesty, sometimes messy, always real. They kept the relationship quiet at first, not out of shame, but because they wanted something private, something the media couldn't touch. Lena would come to his penthouse after her shifts, and they'd order takeout and watch old movies. She'd photograph the sunrise from his floor-to-ceiling windows. He'd work while she read, content in the companionable silence. And with Lena's encouragement, Damien started physical therapy again. He'd given up after the first brutal months, convinced it was pointless. But she'd asked him one night, if you could get even a little mobility back, would it be for you or for everyone else? The question haunted him. He realized he'd stopped trying because he'd internalized everyone else's narrative, that he was broken, diminished, less than. But what if he tried for himself? Not to prove anything to anyone, but simply to see what was possible. Dr. Sarah Chen was brutal. I won't lie to you, Mr. Cole. Full recovery is unlikely, but never walk again doesn't mean the same thing for every patient. With work, and I mean brutal, exhausting work, you might regain some function. Some? Maybe standing with support. Maybe short distances with assistance. Maybe nothing. But definitely nothing if you don't try. So he tried. The sessions were hell. Relearning muscles, fighting through pain, failing over and over. There were days he wanted to quit. Days he broke down in frustration. But Lena was always there, never pushing, just present. You don't have to do this for me, she told him one night after a particularly brutal session. I'm not. I'm doing it for me. Because you taught me something. What's that? That I'm worth the effort. Even if I never walk again, even if nothing changes, I'm worth trying. She met his mother 3 months in, and Margaret's reservations were immediate. She's lovely, darling, his mother said privately. But have you thought about the practicalities? She's a waitress. Your worlds are so different. Our worlds are exactly as different as we let them be. People will talk. The media will have a field day. Let them talk. I don't care anymore, Mom. She makes me happy. Actually happy, not just functional. Doesn't that matter? Margaret's eyes softened. Of course it matters. I just don't want you hurt again. She won't hurt me. She's not Vanessa. No, his mother agreed quietly. She's certainly not. The relationship went public when paparazzi caught them leaving a restaurant together. Damien in his chair, Lena's hand resting casually on his shoulder, both of them laughing at something. The headline read, "Fallen King Finds Love with Mystery Woman." The internet exploded. "Gold digger," the comments said. "She's using him. Bet she's thrilled he's rich enough to make up for the wheelchair." How sad that he settled. Lena read them all, her face growing paler. Damien found her in his bedroom, staring at her phone with tears streaming down her face. "Hey," he said softly, "don't read that garbage. They think I'm with you for your money. They think you're some pathetic rich guy who had to buy affection." She looked at him, devastated. How do we fight that? We don't. We live our lives and let them think whatever they want. But it's not true. I know it's not true. You know it's not true. That's all that matters. He pulled her onto his lap, wiping her tears. Listen to me. You could walk away right now with nothing, and you'd still be the best thing that ever happened to me. These people don't know us. They don't know that you yell at me when I'm being an entitled ass, that you refuse to let me pay for anything, that you make me feel like a human being instead of a disability. They don't know you love me despite my billions, not because of them. I do love you. So much. Then that's all we need. But the comments continued. Gossip blogs tracked her movements. Tabloids dug into her background. "Single mother on disability?" One headline screamed, twisting her mother's MS into something scandalous. His business associates had opinions too. Marcus pulled him aside at a board meeting. "The optics aren't great, Damien. Dating service industry, it looks like you're having some kind of crisis. Or maybe I'm in love. Love is fine, but be strategic about it. This girl, Lena. Her name is Lena. Fine. Lena. She's nice, I'm sure. But is she really board meeting material? Charity gala material? Can she represent Colstar Innovations?" Damien's voice went ice cold. "She doesn't need to represent anything except herself. And if the board has a problem with who I date, they can find a new CEO." He meant it. Before the accident, the company had been everything. Now it was just a job. A successful, lucrative job, but still just a job. Lena was his life. The breaking point came at a charity gala. Damien had brought Lena as his date, paying for her dress despite her protests. Considerate costuming for dealing with these people, he'd argued. She looked stunning in an emerald gown that made her eyes glow. She also looked terrified. "I don't belong here," she whispered as they entered the ballroom. "Everyone's staring. They're staring because you're beautiful. They're staring because I'm the waitress who trapped the poor billionaire." Before he could respond, Vanessa Hart appeared, impossibly tall in 6-inch heels, her model-perfect face arranged in false sympathy. "Damien, darling, and you must be the new girlfriend. Lucy, was it?" "Lena," she said evenly. "Right, Lena. How sweet that Damien's found someone who doesn't mind. Well?" Vanessa's gesture encompassed his wheelchair with practiced elegance. "I always knew he'd land on his feet eventually. Figuratively speaking, of course. The cruelty was surgical." Damien felt Lena stiffen beside him. "Vanessa," he said coldly, "wasn't there somewhere else you needed to be? Perhaps evaluating your life choices?" "No need to be rude, darling. I'm simply happy you found companionship, even if it's unconventional." Lena's hand tightened on his shoulder. When she spoke, her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "You're right. It is unconventional. It's unconventional to find someone who sees past the money and the chair to the actual person underneath. It's unconventional to love someone for who they are, not what they can do for you. And it's unconventional to stick around when things get hard instead of running away like a coward." Vanessa's perfect face flushed. You left him when he was at his lowest. You walked away because he couldn't keep up with your lifestyle. So forgive me if I don't take relationship advice from someone who loves red carpets more than people." Lena turned to Damien. "Can we leave? This party suddenly feels very shallow." They left to whispers and stares. In the car, Lena broke down. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I just made everything worse." "You were magnificent," Damien said, pulling her close. "Absolutely magnificent." "She's right, though. Your world and mine don't fit. Then we'll build our own world, one that fits both of us." He proposed 3 weeks later. Not at some fancy restaurant or on a helicopter or any of the grand gestures his money could buy. He proposed in his penthouse, over Chinese takeout, wearing sweatpants. "This is insane," Lena said, staring at the ring, a stunning emerald-cut diamond that had cost more than most people's houses. "Damien, we've only been together 8 months. 9 months, and I don't need more time to know I want to spend my life with you. People will say I trapped you. Gold digger, wheelchair chaser, all of it. Let them say it. I don't care about people. I care about you. I care about waking up every morning with you beside me. I care about building something real with someone who sees me, all of me, wheelchair included, and loves me anyway. So yes, it's fast. Yes, people will talk. But I love you, Lena Morris, and I want you to be my wife." She was crying now, mascara running. "You're sure? Because once I say yes, I'm not letting go. You're stuck with me through everything. That's all I want, to be stuck with you." "Then yes. Absolutely yes. Even though you have terrible taste in takeout. There's nothing wrong with General Tso's chicken. It's from a mediocre place, and you know it." He kissed her then, and tasted salt from their mingled tears and hope, and something that felt like forever. They married in a small ceremony in the Hamptons. No media circus, no social climbing guests. Just family, close friends, and the love that had somehow survived judgment and doubt, and the complicated reality of 2 people from different worlds choosing each other anyway. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Damien stood. The room gasped. He'd been working with Dr. Chen for nearly a year now, grueling sessions that left him exhausted and frustrated. The progress had been microscopic, measured in millimeters and moments. He could stand with support for brief periods. He could take a few shuffling steps with his walker. It wasn't much. It would never be what he'd had before. But for this moment, for her, he wanted to be on his feet. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. Damien, what? He pulled her close, one hand gripping his walker for balance, the other cupping her face. I wanted to stand for you. Just this once. You didn't have to. I know. That's why I wanted to. He kissed her then, standing on trembling legs, and the applause that erupted was thunderous. His mother sobbed openly. Even Marcus looked moved. When Damien's legs finally began to shake and he needed to sit, Lena went with him, curling into his lap as he settled back into his chair, both of them crying and laughing. I can't believe you did that, she whispered. I told you I'd spend my life trying to be worthy of you. You already were. Standing or sitting, you always were. At the reception, during their first dance, Lena sat in his lap as he wheeled them in slow circles to their song. It wasn't conventional. It wasn't what anyone expected, but it was theirs. I used to think the accident destroyed my life, Damien murmured against her hair. But it brought me to you, so I can't regret it. The accident didn't bring you to me. You being brave enough to keep living did. Semantics. Important semantics. She kissed him softly. I love you, Damien Cole, my stubborn, brilliant, occasionally infuriating husband. I love you, Lena Cole, my fierce, honest, absolutely perfect wife. The baby came. Noah James Cole was born at 3:47 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November, weighing 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with his mother's eyes and his father's stubborn chin. When the nurse placed him in Damien's arms, the world stopped. Hi, he whispered to the tiny, perfect human in his arms. I'm your dad. I'm going to try really hard not to mess this up. Noah's eyes opened, unfocused and searching. Damien's hands trembled. I never thought I'd have this, he told Lena, who was exhausted and radiant in the hospital bed. A family. This kind of happiness. I thought that died in the accident. But it didn't die, she said softly. It changed. Different, but better. Better, he agreed, looking at his wife and son. Definitely better. Life settled into a new rhythm. Damien continued his therapy with Dr. Chen, and slowly, agonizingly slowly, his body responded. By Noah's first birthday, he could walk short distances with a cane. By his second month, he was walking unassisted for longer stretches, though he still needed his wheelchair for difficult days and long distances. The progress was remarkable. Dr. Chen called him her miracle patient. 5% of people with your injury level regain this much mobility. You've worked harder than anyone I've ever treated. I had good motivation, Damien said, watching through the window as Lena played with Noah in the park outside the clinic. And then, 2 years after his wedding, everything came full circle. Damien was at Quantum, the restaurant where this whole journey had begun, meeting with potential investors. He'd walked in with his cane, taking his time but managing the distance. The maitre d' had recognized him immediately. Mr. Cole, wonderful to see you, and congratulations on your recovery. It's truly remarkable. As he waited in the bar area, nursing a scotch, a familiar voice made him freeze. Damien? He turned to find Vanessa Hart standing there, looking every inch the supermodel she was, but there was something different in her eyes, uncertainty, hope. Vanessa. His voice was carefully neutral. Wow. Look at you. You're walking. She smiled, and it was almost genuine. I heard about your progress, but seeing it, it's incredible. Thank you. She moved closer, her perfume, the same expensive scent she'd always worn, triggering unwanted memories. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, about us. I made a mistake, Damien. I was scared and stupid, and I walked away when I should have stayed. That was 3 years ago, Vanessa. I know, and I've regretted it every day since. She reached out, her hand touching his arm. But you're recovering now. You're walking again. We could try again. Start over. I'm different now. More mature. I understand what really matters. Damien studied her face, still beautiful, still carefully composed. Once upon a time, this woman had been his entire world. Once upon a time, her leaving had shattered him. Now he felt nothing but a distant pity. No, he said simply. No? Damien, please. I know I hurt you, but… Vanessa, you left when I needed someone most. You looked at me in that wheelchair and couldn't see past the disability to the person I still was. You saw a burden, a responsibility, something that would inconvenience your life. I was young. I made a mistake. And now I'm walking again. So suddenly I'm acceptable? Suddenly I'm worth your time? He shook his head. That tells me everything I need to know. You don't want me. You want the version of me that fits your lifestyle. The version that can walk into rooms and turn heads, that can sweep you off your feet, that makes you look good in photographs. That's not fair. I've changed. Maybe you have. But it doesn't matter because I've changed too. I'm married now, Vanessa. Happily married to someone who loved me at my lowest. Someone who never needed me to walk to see my worth. Vanessa's face paled. You're… married? 3 years now. With a son. To that waitress? The disdain in her voice was barely concealed. To my wife, he corrected firmly. Lena. Who saw me as a man worth loving when I couldn't even see it myself? Who stayed through the hardest days, not because of what I could give her, but because of who I was. So no, Vanessa. We're not starting over. We're not trying again. That door closed the day you walked out of my penthouse. He stood, gathering his coat. I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. But it's not going to be with me. He walked away, each step steady and sure, leaving her standing alone in the bar, the same way she'd left him 3 years ago. Outside, he called Lena. How's my favorite person? Covered in applesauce and questioning all my life choices. Your son decided lunch is better worn than eaten. How's your meeting? Haven't had it yet, but I just ran into Vanessa. Oh. Lena's voice was careful. How did that go? She wanted to reconcile. Now that I can walk again. A pause. Then quietly. And I told her I'm married to the love of my life, and walked away. Literally walked away, which felt pretty damn good, actually. He could hear the smile in her voice. Good answer. Very good answer. You're getting extra dessert tonight. Is that a euphemism? Damien Cole, our son is sitting right here. He's 2. He doesn't understand euphemisms. Come home, you ridiculous man. We miss you. I'm on my way. At a charity gala, Damien couldn't avoid. Colstar was a major sponsor, and his presence was non-negotiable. Lena came with him, stunning in a navy gown, her confidence grown over the years into something radiant. They were at the bar when Camilla Harrington materialized beside them. Damien, I thought that was you. You look… amazing. Her eyes traveled over him, taking in his lack of a wheelchair, his cane leaning casually against the bar. Your recovery is the talk of the town. Everyone's so impressed. Camilla. He nodded politely. This is my wife, Lena. Camilla's smile didn't falter. She pretended like she didn't hear him. Damien, I was hoping we could talk. Camilla touched his other arm, effectively positioning herself between him and Lena. Privately? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of my wife. Well? Camilla laughed, a practiced tinkle. I wanted to apologize for how things ended between us. That lunch date was… I wasn't in the right headspace. I've done a lot of therapy since then, a lot of personal growth. I've realized I let fear dictate my choices. That's very self-aware, Damien said neutrally. I'd love to take you to lunch, to properly apologize. Maybe we could reconnect. She leaned in slightly. I'm not the same person I was. And you're clearly not either. Look at you. Walking. Thriving. It's like you've been given a second chance at life. I have been. Damien agreed. Camilla's smile tightened. Of course. But surely you can spare a lunch for an old friend? We were never friends, Camilla. We had one disastrous date where you made it clear I didn't meet your standards. You walked out because you needed someone who could keep up with your active lifestyle, remember? I was scared. You were shallow. And I don't blame you for it. You wanted what you wanted. But now I can walk again and suddenly I'm worth your time? Suddenly you've had this revelation? He shook his head. The only thing that's changed is my mobility. I'm the same person I was in that wheelchair. The same man you found lacking. That's not fair. You don't know what I was going through. And you didn't care enough to find out what I was going through. You saw a responsibility, a burden, something that would complicate your hiking trips and dance classes. So no, Camilla, I don't want to reconnect. I'm exactly where I want to be. He turned to Lena, pulling her close. With someone who saw past the wheelchair to the person underneath, someone who loved me at my worst and celebrated every small victory. Someone who's earned every moment of my best. Camilla's face flushed. You're making me sound like a terrible person. I'm simply reminding you of your own words. He took Lena's hand and they walked away together. Him with his cane, her at his side, partners in the truest sense. You handled that well, Lena murmured. Years of practice dealing with board members who underestimated me. She looked like you'd slapped her. Good. Maybe it'll teach her something about judging people by their limitations instead of their character. My fierce, protective husband. She kissed his cheek. Remind me to reward you properly later. Is that... Yes, it's a euphemism. Now come on, I see your mother waving us over and she's using her I have gossip face. The breakthrough came on a Sunday morning. Damien had been doing his exercises in their home gym, the same grueling routine he'd maintained for years. But something felt different today. Stronger. More connected. He set aside his cane and stood. Then he walked. Not shuffling steps or careful movements with support nearby. Real, smooth, natural walking. Across the gym. Back again. His legs responded like they had before the accident. Like the neural pathways had finally, miraculously, rewired themselves completely. Lena! His voice shook. Lena, come here! She rushed in, Noah on her hip, eyes wide with concern. What's wrong? Watch. He walked to her. Smoothly, naturally, no support. Took Noah from her arms, holding his son while standing on his own 2 feet for the first time since the accident. The boy giggled, delighted by this new height. Lena's hand covered her mouth, tears spilling over. Damien, I'm walking. Really walking. His own voice cracked. She wrapped her arms around both of them, the 3 of them standing together. A family complete in ways that had nothing to do with mobility and everything to do with love. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. So incredibly proud. But you know it doesn't change anything, right? I'd love you just as much if this never happened. I know. That's why it matters so much. Because I'm doing this for me, not to be worthy of you. I already am. Damn right you are. The news spread quickly. Tech mogul defies odds. Damien Cole's miraculous recovery. The headlines screamed. Forbes wanted an interview. The Today Show called. His phone exploded with messages from people he hadn't heard from in years. And in that Manhattan penthouse, with his wife in his arms and their son sleeping peacefully down the hall, Damien Cole, billionaire, CEO, husband, father, finally understood what it meant to have everything that mattered. Not because he could walk again, though the recovery was wonderful. Not because he'd overcome his disability, though he'd adapted to it and eventually surpassed it. but because he'd learned the most important lesson of all: wealth wasn't measured in billions or square footage or magazine covers or the ability to walk. It was measured in moments like these: quiet, ordinary, perfect. And by that measure, Damian Cole was the richest man alive. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because there are so many more stories of people who rose again after falling. Comment below: have you ever fallen and risen again? Share your story below. I want to hear about the moment that changed everything for you. See you in the next story.